Good evening, everyone. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you for everyone joining us tonight. We're going to start off with student recognition, so I'll hand it over.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. We're going to start. We have 4 students we want to recognize, and I believe Dr. Foy, Dr. Ein, and Mr. Armano are here to present to those students. So come on up, guys.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. On a yearly basis, all of our elementary schools, middle school, high school, we have some wonderful traditions. One tradition that has always been around here at Sayville is the Sayville My Hometown Essay, sponsored by the Pilot Club. So this time I'd like to invite Ms. Cubell and Ms. Bella to join us from the Pilot Club up here at the podium. So the Pilot Club of Sayville is a division of Pilot International, one of the leading civic service organizations in the world today. Named for the intrepid riverboat pilots, Pilot chose its name to represent guidance and leadership. Members come from all walks of life. They are executives, business, professional, and community leaders, as well as retirees. Pilots they all share a common goal, and that goal is to help those in need and improve the quality of life in their community as well as the communities around the world. The Pilot Club of Sayville has generously offered once again to sponsor an essay contest for our Sayville 4th graders across the district. We're grateful for the partnership that is between our district and the club for this contest. As a tradition, the topic is Sayville, my hometown. This more open-ended topic also gives students the sufficient latitude to really approach their writing from a variety of viewpoints. So this year's 3 winners, one from each of our elementary buildings, is from Cherry Avenue, Olivia DiGiorio. DiGiorio. Congratulations. You come on up, Olivia. From Lincoln Avenue, Mason Martello. And last but not least, from Sunrise Drive, Emerson St. John. Yeah, absolutely. And each of our recipients, not only did they receive a Board of Education citation tonight, but a beautiful plaque here from the Pilot Club and a little gift on the side for your just wonderful, wonderful essay. So a little round of applause for everyone.
Together.
Everyone slide down the 5 feet.
Yeah, just a little bit that way.
There's a high school picture like this. Okay.
Emerson, you slide down.
I still remember those
There you
days.
go. There you go.
Together. Look at me. 3, 2, 1. Congratulations, everyone.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much.
For those students that would like to stay with their families for the entirety of the meeting, I'm sorry, one more. My bad. I apologize.
All right. So, we thought that maybe last month we were done learning a little bit about science, but, here I have a Sunrise Drive scientist that we need to give her day in the sun. So, Kira, why don't you come on over here to the podium? Kira's Vignetsky. So Kira wasn't able to make our last Board of Education meeting where she received her citation. So we're going to do it again tonight. Kira had a wonderful, wonderful, helpful science experiment to represent our 4th graders, and she won at Sunrise Drive. Kira, you're going to have to help me with the name of this plan again. I'm sorry. So Kira Kira took 4 plants and she tried to figure out the best way to create a natural erosion prevention technique, correct? So the 4 plants were, what was the one? Echeveria? How do I say it? Thank you. Echeveria, African violet, ivy, and philodendron. Actually, you proved yourself wrong. Yeah, so I think you thought that Echeveria was going to prevent the most loss of erosion, but it was actually everyone's favorite plant, ivy. Yes. So yes, it might creep into your yard, but living on the South Shore where you never know how high the tide's going to get, plant a little ivy and you will naturally prevent erosion from taking place. Great job, Kira. Way to represent Sunrise Drive.
Kira, come on over. Wait, bring your citation.
I'm not going to miss that big smile.
3, 2, 1. Great. Congratulations.
Great job, Kira. Thank you, everyone.
That's our last,
Yes, so for those students who plan to stay for the meeting, you're more than welcome. But if you want to get home to do some homework or to rest with friends or family, at this time you may take a moment to step out. He's like, see ya. And we do have some more seating in the front row. If anyone's on the side would like to sit in the front, there's some seats available in the front.
okay. Under reports, the first item I have is the introduction of school board candidates. So we have 5 candidates. One is Teal Rizzo. The other one is Chris Robinson, because I won't say Christopher Robinson because people make it confused. The third candidate is Jason Rowland. The fourth candidate is Allison Ryan. And the fifth candidate is Christine Sarni.
Sal, could you turn the volume up on the mic? And why don't we do that again? Let's let each candidate stand up and just
Okay.
say hi to everybody, okay? Yeah. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay. So we'll start off with the first candidate, Teal Rizzo. Okay. Thank you. The second candidate is Chris Robertson. The third candidate is Jason Rowland. Fourth candidate is Allison Ryan. And the fifth candidate is Christine Sarn.
And again, there are about 3 more seats in the front. So if anyone's standing, you could come on up. There's an empty seat for you there.
Okay, then the next thing we'll hand over is to the budget presentation.
Board rate. All right, so we have a couple of things we're going to do tonight. We have around the district, which we'll do very quickly, just some great things happening. We're going to have some members of the high school team come up and just share some of the things they've been talking about for the Student Board of Ed member discussion. As New York State passed a law last year that Board of Ed should have a ex officio student member. And so we asked our student government for some ideas, and they have a proposal for us to consider, and then the board can discuss how they would like to proceed. And then we're going to do the budget hearing for the Historical Society, the library, and for the Sayville School District. And then we'll take public comment. Before we begin, though, we have 3 awards for board members to give out. On behalf of the the New York State School Boards Association, I'm proud to provide a Board Achievement Award to Kathy Van Doren, who's being honored for doing 75 hours of professional development as a board member. And so they sent you a certificate. So I just wanted to kind of present you with the certificate. We also have a Board of Excellence Award for Mr. Tom Cooley, who did 150 hours of professional development as a board member. And I have to say, always, the person who brings up, like, she's like our Aaron Judge of professional development, the Board Mastery Award, which is the highest level of professional development you could do as a board member, 250 plus hours, goes to our very own superstar, Maureen Dolan. Okay, and then there's more good news. So I just want to kind of go over a couple cool things that happened around the district. Kids Heart Challenge, Lincoln Avenue Elementary School. This is awesome. Raised $18,000 for the American Heart Association at their annual Kids Heart Challenge. They were featured on News 12, and students took part in a series of fitness-related activities organized by PE teacher Beth Bolger with help from volunteers across the community. The event raised awareness for the importance of staying active and maintaining proper heart health, while also showing how fun it could be to stay fit and healthy. The school's top donors even had the opportunity to pie their teachers and their principals in the face, which I saw on video that they really enjoyed. It was. And I just want to say, like, the amount of activities that our elementary schools, our middle school, our high school do in the act of service towards others and in the community and beyond is phenomenal. And it ties in beautifully to our approach of caring and learning. We care about others and we learn in the process. So congratulations to Lincoln Avenue. We also had the two Sayville High School Rise Tech students, research students, the opportunity to compete in the Long Island Science Congress. Wesley Jones and Max Person invested hours in the research lab developing and testing their projects before presenting their results to a panel of judges from across Long Island. Wesley's project was a biomedical research category. He created an innovative new ankle brace designed using 3D printing, focused on minimizing ankle injuries in basketball players. Max was in the Earth, Space, and Energy category, presenting on regenerative power production for electric vehicles through wind resistance during vehicle braking. Congratulations to both boys. This is our first time in this competition, and they did a great job. Mike Sands was recently named the best defensive football player on Long Island in the 2024 season. He accepted the Greg Sauer Award at the annual Scholar Athletes Award brunch at the National Football Foundation's James Metzger's Suffolk County chapter in Melville. Congratulations. In the middle, linebacker racked up 116 tackles, 6 sacks, 21 tackles for loss, and a pick 6 last season. He is committed to play at Franklin and Marshall College in the fall. Congratulations, Mikey Sands. At Cherry Avenue, Ms. Klibowitz's 4th and 5th grade reading classes have spent the last month working on their fluency using poetry. To show off what they learned, the 4th graders read their poems to Mrs. Constantino's kindergarten class, so older kids reading to younger kids, and to Ms. Barrick's 1st grade class. This collaboration between grades is exactly what caring and learning is all about. Congratulations to our students at Cherry Avenue Elementary. And finally, I hope many of you had a chance this weekend to go to the All District Art Show. Congratulations to all of our students who took part in Sayville's annual District Art Show. On display were beautiful paintings, drawings, ceramics, and more that absolutely captivated everyone in attendance. Thank you for sharing your talent with us, and thank you for the art department for making this happen. They are so talented, the kids and the staff, and when you walk around, whether it's paintings or sculpture, it's just phenomenal, high-level work all across the board, across the district. So thank you to our teachers and our staff and our families for supporting that event. And now I'd like to call up members of the high school team who have a brief presentation just about the idea of adding a student member to the Board of Education. This is Ms. Hannah Michelson and Principal Stephanie Bricker.
So I'm Hannah Michelson, I'm a business teacher at the high school. I'm also an administrative intern with Mrs. Bricker. So as Dr. Farris just pointed out, back in September, a bill was signed that there needs to be a student representative on the Board of Education as of July 1. So I'm excited to share our proposal with you. So I've been speaking with Mrs. Bricker and our current student government advisor. We created a plan to have a new dedicated position for this role within student government. So we envision this student acting as a vital liaison between the student body and the Board of Education. This representative will be expected to present a broader range of student perspectives on the various important matters that come before the board. A key responsibility will be providing regular public reports during the board meetings. The ideal candidate for this role will be a clear communicator, someone who has confidence and is able to represent their peers and the student body effectively with the Board of Education. To align with the legal requirements, we propose that this position be held by a Sayville High School senior who has been a student at the high school for at least 1 year prior to their service. Meeting attendance is a key expectation for this role with active participation, and to ensure this consistent student representation, in the event that the elected student member cannot attend a meeting, the current student government president would attend in their place. Thank you so much for the opportunity. We would love your approval to proceed with this. We would love to have this on the ballot on May 23rd, or if not, have a special election in June. Thank you.
And could you talk to the board about some of the options that were presented to the students and why they picked, or why they would like to pick the version that you came up with?
So we didn't speak directly with students. This was my conversation with Ms. Brooker and the current student government advisor.
Okay.
But we felt by having this person elected, that the student body shares now in the experience of having this person represent themselves
Right.
as the student body, rather than us appointing somebody. Right now, they're having a say in that as well.
Right. Okay. Any questions from the board? Yeah.
Just one question. Did you say it's going to be a senior?
Yeah, so,
Okay,
yes,
just wanted to make. sure.
yeah,
I thought I heard that. I said, did you say it's going to be a senior?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
So I fully support that it's an election and
I
that the
do too.
student body has a chance to pick who their representative will be. Is there any thought into perhaps making the alternate a junior? Being on this board and sitting up here takes a bit of a learning curve, and it would almost like set them and give them a little bit of experience if they had to sit in once in a while so that they're more prepared perhaps for the following year.
I think that's a great idea.
So just bring that back to them.
Yeah, I love that.
Very good.
So would this be, obviously it would be a current junior, and this would be May 23rd is the student government elections?
Yes.
When you say elections, okay. And so this would be a separate ballot, right? Or would this be a student government, like, does this person have to have a position in the student government? Or would it be a separate ballot?
A new position in student government.
Okay. So you would have your president, your vice president, your
Right.
treasurer, and then you would have your board liaison?
Correct.
Just turn your mic on.
So did they have to fill out an application for this? Did they have to have teacher recommendation for this? Do they know the expectations of this role? It's very serious to be a board member.
Yeah, so really it's a pause until a proposal would have board approval. and
Okay.
then we would proceed. But yes, there would be an application similar to the expectations with all elected
Right.
positions in the building. They would need to go through, having recommendations,
Right.
filling out an application, and then go through the voting process, yes. We've not proceeded that far because we're not sure if this proposal will be approved. If it's approved, then Ms. Michelson and I will work with Ms. Soul, the student government advisor, on crafting an application for this role specifically, in addition to the regular student government
Great.
role.
So will the three of you vet those applications, or just anyone who applies gets put on for student choice?
Well, I think similar to the positions in all of our extracurriculars, there is a bit of vetting to make sure that the initial criteria is met. Once that criteria is met, then the candidates that meet that criteria will be put to a vote.
Good.
Yeah, so the multi-step process.
So perhaps we, the board, can come up with the expectations for you so they know exactly
We would love
the
that,
responsibility.
absolutely.
Sure. So either, if we can do that in a manner of time to kind of prepare for them, they can either have it part of their regular election, or they could have a special election in June when we have those expectations. I did put together for you guys, like from the newspaper clipping, just like things that work well for the board members. I know that Ms. Sack also provided some stuff for the board, and Ms. DiMiola had pulled the potential board policies, and in that it can talk about a list of responsibilities and expectations, and you can kind of see that, and then we can peel it down to the things that matter most. We don't have to start from scratch, or we can start from scratch, really whatever you guys would like to do.
So I think it makes sense in once this is in place to make it part of the ballot process. But is it feasible this year to have that done by next week? Or can it be a special election this June so we have some time to get it together?
No, absolutely. So our voting process is May 23rd for class officers and student government, but I think we need a little bit more time, and then we can do a special election in
Yeah,
June.
just this year.
So what I'd like to propose is there any board members who'd like to maybe work with Ms. DiMiola, between now and then, just to look at the school board association's recommended policies and any criteria? You could almost have like a subcommittee put together the criteria and then submit it to the high school.
Yeah, I can do that with her. Yeah.
Sure.
Definitely.
So Desmond, Kathy, anyone else? I think a 2 is fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then, so Amy will reach out to you guys to set up a meeting date. You guys get together, she'll bring the materials and you'll craft it and then we'll get it to the high school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted
Very
to
much.
just express support for the concept. I think for me, like the toughest interview I've ever experienced when I was a school administrator was actually a student. You know, like, and the kid was grilling me and she was really smart. And also, I think for me, the more we give them meaningful leadership opportunities, the more they feel stake and that this is like their school. I also think it was just ironic today. I was happened to be in Levittown schools, and they put a plaque up of the student board representative in the board office, and it's beautiful. And I think for me, I really look forward to this. You know, there's a school that I kind of dream about maybe retiring to part-time. It's almost entirely student run, and it's a national powerhouse academically and athletically. The more meaningful leadership opportunities we can offer kids, I'm just excited. I think that I've had them on interviews with me, and the adults are very different when there's a student. And I just think it brings decorum up. And I think I'm just really excited. I appreciate the work you guys have done. This is something I really look forward to. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we're going to move on to the budget hearing process. We're going to bring up the director of the library, Ms. Fowler, and she is going to share her library budget with you.
Good evening, I'm Jennifer Fowler, the director of the Sayville Library. Thank you for the opportunity this evening to present the proposed 2025-26 budget for the Sayville Library. So on this year's ballot, library trustee Claudia Carpenter is running for a 5-year term unopposed. Okay, so just a little bit about a year in review. This year for the library has been a very successful one. Here are a few of our highlights. With patrons downloaded over 80,000 ebooks and e-audiobooks in Sayville this past year. Staff performed over 500 notary transactions. Through the library's online resource Brainfuse, Sayville students accessed 1,000 virtual tutoring sessions. Local teams served 1,100 hours of community service at your library, and 600 community group meetings took place. 25,000 patrons attended nearly 900 programs, and this year the library is averaging 10,000 visitors a month, which is putting us on track to welcome 123,000 visitors for the year. So it's been a good year. Okay, so our budget priorities when we were putting together this budget were, we were being very mindful of the following: sustaining the current level of operating hours, prioritizing core services with an emphasis on programming, investing in technology, keeping it current and our computer systems in optimum condition, maintaining the library building, its infrastructure and the grounds, and of course supporting staff development with professional resources and training. So on the revenue side of the budget, the proposed budget includes a $307,000 increase. $734,800 of that revenue will be applied towards the repayment of the library's bond. Other areas of revenue include $25,000 from debt reserve that the school has retained on behalf of the library. Donations, the majority of which come from the Friends of the Sayville Library and their fundraising efforts, which have been outstanding this year. There will be a decrease in our pilots payment, just as like the school is also facing this, due to the grievances awarded to the Bristol. So now we're just going to move over to the expenditures side. Under materials and services, the local history budget has been increased to accommodate upcoming digitization projects. Please note significant increases to library programming. These funds will enable us to continue the highly successful large-scale programs such as FanFest, the Library Lock-In, Great Give Back, and the annual haunted house. We will continue with our staple programs such as story time, etc., with an increase in early literacy programs and programs for new parents. Under library operations, we were able to save $5,000, and this is due to more efficient methods of processing and our sustainable practices in this area. Under equipment and furnishing, the library has an effective technology plan that includes diligent maintenance and safeguarding of our library computer systems. And this has enabled us to extend the lifespan of our equipment and result in a decrease in spending in this area. Under buildings, operations, and maintenance, we do have an increase of $18,000, and this is mainly due to the replacement and updating of a significantly antiquated phone system. Administration expenses have been reduced by $2,300, and that is based on updated contractual agreements. Under salaries and benefits is the increase in these sections are to accommodate the contractual agreement our employees have with the CSEA union. Additionally, we are raising the hourly rate of our security guards who are not members of the union. And this budget supports the new full-time children's librarian and the new full-time senior library clerk in the teen department. Lastly, the library debt service. The library will be paying a total of $759,800 towards the bond payment. This upcoming fiscal year will be year 18 of 20 of the bond. So we are so close to finishing out that bond payment. Next slide, please. So the projected tax rate increase, the average homeowner will see an annual increase of $40.07, which comes to $3.34 a month, or just 11 cents a day for your library. The next slide, please. So to wrap it up, just to review, our goals are to continue to sustain an excellent standard of operation, increase public services and programming, expand programs and tools in the library's popular makerspace, foster relationships with our valued community partners such as the Rotary, the school district, the Kiwanis, the SVIZ, and so many more. Finally, we are dedicated to the maintenance of your library and keeping up with the emerging library technologies. So if anybody has any questions about the budget, I'm happy to answer, or you can reach me at the library. There's my phone number, email super easy, jennifer@sayvillelibrary.org, and that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions?
Is Claudia Carpenter here?
She is.
Well, hi. I want to thank you for your years of devotion to Sayville and your love for children and books.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we have the Historical Society budget.
Thank
Welcome,
you.
Roy.
Thank you, board members, general public, for supporting the Historical Society. My name is Roy Fedlin. I'm currently president of the Sayville Historical Society. And we've done a number of things this year, which I'm happy to have done. One is the Edwards Family Cemetery has been cleaned up. Most people probably don't know that we have a private Edwards Family Cemetery. It's not open to the public. It's in the middle of the block, but we felt it out of respect to the Edwards family, the founders of Sayville, it should at least be cleaned up. So the cemetery was cleaned up. We did get some new equipment. We got a new computer, which was very much needed. And June 1st is our annual farm day. So you're all welcome to come to the farm day. And this year we decided that it's a total give back to the community. We are not going to charge admission to it. And we'll have musical groups. We will have farm animals from Cooperative Extension. And we will have refreshments and tours. And for the first time this year, we had tours including the upstairs of the Edwards Homestead, which has been closed for decades. So a lot of people were excited to be able to see the upstairs. As far as our budget goes, it's only a small increase. Insurance costs went up, and utilities went up a little, and staff went up. As you probably know, in New York State, minimum wage has been going up and up. And if we don't keep pace, our office manager will be making less than minimum wage. So we had to increase her pay. So we've asked for a very modest increase. Overall, our budget's going from 92,000 to 97,000, and we're asking for another 1,000 or so to increase the taxpayers' portion to 57,000. And that's 1/10 of a cent per $100 of assessed value. So it's a small amount, but we appreciate the support of the community.
Thank you.
What is the day at the farm? The day.
The farm date is June 1st from 2 to 5.
One question in the back.
Yes.
So how are you? On the day of the farm, will you have like a donation jar and stuff like that so the community can support the historical society?
Yes, yeah, we'll put out a donation jar, but we decided not to have any admission.
Well, thank you. I'm sure that people appreciate that.
Yes.
Are you guys doing a house tour again for Christmas?
We hope so.
Okay.
As for, we have somebody working on it, and if we get enough houses, we will have the house tour, which is a very nice event that we have annually.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now we have Ms. Messerov presenting the school budget for your review.
Good evening, everyone. This is pretty much going to be a summary of some of the key presentations that we've had leading up to this point. So the budget hearing shall begin. Each year, we are required to publish certain documents which have all been out. I am sure many of you at this point have already seen the budget tidings. It's new this year. I'm just going to say that it's doubled because it is also in Spanish rather than just a notation that the Spanish versions are on the website. So this is in the hands of our residents, and shortly, if not already, you will be receiving the 6-day budget notice. That looks like a double-page big postcard, and you may already have received that as well. So, but again, our website is chock full of a lot of the presentations and also a budget book, which you can look. There's one in every building. There's a Spanish version, because that is what we're required to do, and the English version. There's a copy that was sent to the library, and then in each of our buildings. Also on the website, we've added some budget facts, so you can look to see the website again. So just some of the 3-part component budget, which we've shown, the 6-day notice, and then we have as part of the budget book, the property tax report card is on the website, our financial transparency report, that's always a year earlier. It's on actual data, academic performance reports, and the property tax exemption report. So the budget stands as what the Board of Ed had adopted at our last meeting, $105,676,793. That is a decrease over 24-25 of 0.33%, and that equates to $351,838. Our tax levy cap is at the maximum of 2.317%. And I have that calculation provided again this evening as a summary. So just an overview of the revenue budget.
As I had just mentioned, the tax levy percentage is at 2.317%. That is a tax levy increase. It equates to $210 on an average home of 45,000, $1,750 a month. These are all estimates. We don't get our assessments until the late summer, fall. Actually, after we set the levy. So, our foundation aid this year did have an increase of 2%, so that was positive. And the district continues to use our fund balance and reserves, predominantly in our benefit codes. That's where our reserves are appropriated each year, and that total is at $5,494,070. So, payment in lieu of taxes, it's been a big topic this budget process. That was reduced due to a challenge by the Bristol, and also consequences for our current year. We received less than what we anticipated. And other revenue is down pretty much due to tuition that we are no longer receiving from other districts. Speculation, but they've probably grown their own programs in their districts and are keeping their students there. So the fiscal stress score comes out every January after the state controller's office processes year-end audit data. So this is based upon our 2024 year, 2023-2024 year. And the fiscal score for our financial end went up. It, in essence, doubled this year based on, the heavy use of reserves and fund balance. But our environmental score, which is out of our control, actually halved. So that has to do with our community and demographics, residents supporting the school budget vote. So that is based on the 23-24 year. So we still are very important in a no designation based on 2024-2025. We may see an uptick in the fiscal score again based on our fund balance projections, which have been shared with the district and our board of ed. But again, we have done, this budget is reflective of an emphasis on trying to preserve our reserves and grow our fund balance. So.
One of the things I wanted to add was, even though this is no designation, we have to keep an eye on this because since 2018, we've been drawing on reserves to help keep programs. And I think it's really important to restore some of that and have a 5-year plan to put money back into those reserves to rebuild those, bring the stress score down and stabilize the district.
Yes, and it does also help our Moody's rating. And we do have a new 5-year capital plan that is in the works. I have not seen the final report, but that was something that was put in our 2024-25 budget. And part of that is a prioritized list of the various capital projects that we would like to do. So the district does have a new bond issue for our roofing projects and an HVAC project in our high school. However, we do also have a capital reserve. And by being able to grow some of our, lessen our expenditures and come in a little higher on our revenues, we're able to further fund that. There is a time limit to that. So, but that capital reserve will help us address capital projects in the district without actually going out for permanent financing. So you save on interest costs when that happens. So is a 2% tax levy cap really 2%? Well, for this year it is because the consumer price index was approximately 2.95. So we are capped at 2%. However, there are other things that come into that calculation. On the left-hand side of the screen are some of the components of what that calculation is. Our pilots, capital exclusion, which involves our debt service, and then those capital projects that we are funding from our general fund, the $1 million, which I'll
share again later. We do start with our prior tax levy growth rate, our prior tax levy, and there are a couple of calculations that we get from the state, that being the allowable levy growth factor. That usually comes out about the end of January, prior to the tax cap calculation that has to be submitted. Here is the tax cap calculation. It is at the maximum, so we are not piercing the cap. Therefore, we only need we only need a simple majority vote. We don't need a super majority. So again, that was capped at 2.317, and that is what we are going at, and that is an increase to our levy of $1,527,272 over 2024-25. There are two arrows on this calculation because we don't just take what's in the budget as our prior tax levy. That comes from the town, and that is amended for omitted taxes. Those are prorated taxes. There's movement in home ownership. Some people get exemptions, some don't. So that is all recalculated, and that becomes our new beginning starting point. So I just wanted to highlight that again, and that if you compare the 2.317 with the prior year's adopted budget, it says 2.20, but the calculation is 2.317%. Hopefully I'm making sense. And here we have a history of our tax levy percentages. In the middle is the calculated amount, the maximum, and to the right is what the district went with. The arrows are noting 2 years where the district went slightly under the cap, the last being last year. And our residents do not, they vote on a levy, not their tax rate. That's driven by assessed values. We had put this resolution and sample language in an earlier presentation on March 27, 2025. We took remaining excess funds from our unemployment reserve. That was the result of those COVID years where the New York State unemployment was being handed out. They needed to get a grip on all of that was happening, and we received refunds for what was being paid out. We are self-insured for unemployment, so those refunds had to come back to the district and may only be put back into our reserve for unemployment since we had one. So the remaining amount was $700,000, and that was resolved to be taken from that reserve on March 27th. So our proposed revenue detail, we start with the top portion of our state aid. That is still representative of our executive budget that came out on January 21st. Since our last Board of Ed meeting, I think this is the latest, but on May 6th, the legislative budget came out, and it did not show any increase to our foundation aid. That remained at the 2%, a little over $400,000. But what we did get more of is within the expenditure-driven aids, it was under the building aid. And that is merely an estimate, but it is most likely due to the fact that since November, as we finish our roofing projects, through my office, we are filing final cost reports for that building aid. So that was just the only change.
Right.
And also some of the other expenditure aids are actually less than
So
what was presented.
one of the things I want to point out that was disappointing, we had heard from the legislature that there was going to be an increase in foundation aid of a percent on top of the 2%, and that didn't happen. So the foundation aid basically stayed exactly as proposed.
Yes. So then we also have our pilots, which we've spoken about, and then the detail of other income. The largest being our interest, which we do invest where we're able to as a school district. And one of the big winners there has been the addition of night class for us, because those rates are slower to turn when rates go down. So, and it compounds daily. So, but we also receive rent. We have 2 buildings that are being rented by Eastern Suffolk BOCES, actually the 2 buildings behind us here, and we do derive revenue from that. And then down below is just the total of those together. And then the other part of our revenue, broken up here on 2 slides, is all of our our appropriated fund balance, and then the appropriation of all of our reserves. And then below is the property taxes, the tax levy, and the amounts that I had shared earlier of the estimate of what will it cost for our residents. That is also inclusive of any star aid. So it's one amount, and then we find out what the star aid is after those filings. This is a pie chart of the revenues. Again, the largest portion coming from our property taxes, then from state aid, and it goes on from there. So this is actually part of what has been in the budget newsletter, and it's just maintaining our thriving programs. I don't know if you would like to expand on anything there, Dr. Ferris?
I think it just speaks to the things we've been talking about in each meeting, which is maintaining programs, trying to ensure that students have the programming that they need, and doing that at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. So it speaks for itself.
This is the expenditure budget, starting with the largest piece of our expenditures being salaries and then employee benefits for all of our staff, both certified and non-certified staff. And then we have our debt service. There is a separate slide on that. Contractual expenditures other than BOCES, that is separate. We have increased the BOCES services in the last year. And then we have other expenditures. Our transportation is another large expenditure for the district, which we have presented in previous budget presentations. I also have another slide on that. And then transfers to other funds. I just want to specify, we have a capital fund and a capital reserve. A capital reserve is a reserve within our general operating fund, but the capital reserve is a separate fund where we transfer money to that to tackle all of our capital projects. That's the $1 million for secondary bathroom renovations. And we also have a special aid fund where we transfer money out of this to handle the 20% portion of our summer handicap program. And the total is $105,676,793. This is a pie chart of our expenditures. Here, this pie chart breaks down both our non-certified and our certified salaries. You add them together, it equals the slide prior, and just the percentages and amounts for each of that. And you can see salaries is the largest, and then employee benefits. Here's a breakout of our employee benefits. So we do have we're part of 2 retirement systems. Our non-certified are typically part of the employees retirement system, New York State. Our certified, that's our administrators and teachers, are part of our teachers retirement. And those are employer contributions. Both our employees contribute, but the employer also contributes based on an annual rate each year. We have Social Security, which we contribute towards, as well as our employees. Workers' compensation, this is actually what we appropriate from our workers' comp reserve. It's an estimate of what we anticipate our workers' comp claims to be. We've had a number of, there sometimes an employee gets hurt. It takes many years for those to be settled. We've had a couple of settlements come through this year, but that is an estimate on our workers' compensation. Life insurance, unemployment, there again, an appropriation from our reserve based on staff that is no longer, that are collecting unemployment. And then just our other disability and health insurance. This is our debt service. This is representative of both the principal and interest of our short-term and long-term obligations. An example of a short-term obligation would be our tax anticipation note. We get our tax revenues pretty much in January. So when we start back to school in September, we have a larger increase to our payroll for our teachers, and school is up and running so by October, we have a lull until we get our tax monies again. So we go out for a borrowing. In the last 2 years, I've split that to 2 series because we do get a chunk of money that comes back in January. So we pay a piece of that back, and then the rest is used and paid back at the end of the year. Short term is for 1 year. Our long term encompasses both serial bonds. We have a couple of series as well as a new one that is now on the books for the roofing projects, and our energy performance contracts. We are starting on our 3rd energy performance contract. We are currently in play with 2 of our prior energy performance contracts. They typically have 15 to 20-year lives on the payback of those. But we do derive savings for lower energy. It's specific to energy costs. This is just more detail of the breakdown of our debt service schedules for both those short-term and long-term interest and principal as I described. So this is our transfer to the capital fund, and that is we finished our elementary renovations of our bathrooms this past summer. So now we've turned our eye towards the secondary, both middle school and high school. We have 4 bathrooms in each of those buildings that have been addressed as a priority. So that is what the $1 million is going towards for and they will begin in the summer, that work. For the and then our transfer to special aid is the 20% for our summer handicap programs, and those are interfund transfers. These are before pictures of our bathrooms in need of renovation. At the top is the middle school auditorium. Those are the bathrooms right outside the auditorium, and across the hall from there is the middle school, the cafeteria bathrooms, both boys and girls on both of those. So that's the 4. And then for the high school, that is near our the athletic doors and wing, a boys and girls bathroom there, and then also in our guidance wing. This is a slide on our BOCES expenditures, and we do derive BOCES aid. That is estimated in the budget at the $2,092,078. And for 24-25, we're slated to get $1,609,167. We have there's various percentages of the state aid based upon the type of service, but an average for the district is 48%. So of our expenditures, we could expect to get 48% back. Transportation, this is the 2025-2026 year will be the first year of a 5-year contract with Suffolk Transportation Services, Inc. A RFP was conducted on February 21st, 2025. We gave an opportunity to various transportation vendors to submit a closed, sealed RFP. We received one. We did place, it's a legal process, we placed an ad in the paper for that. Anyone who, that's the end of our responsibility. However, we did send them out to 7 vendors prior to the February 21st date. The Board of Ed awarded to Suffolk Transportation Services, Inc. that RFP. We went with a 5-year contract, which was a savings because a 1-year contract, we actually won't be paying until year 3 of the 5-year contract. So you get a little bit of savings by going with the 5-year contract.
I also want to add to that. I know there was some concern from the community the last time we mentioned this, that there was only one bid and why didn't we get more? And Ms. Mastrol has said it's a legal process. You put out what you put out and you can get what you get. I also wanted to address the reason, because I've talked to other superintendents, I've talked to other, to the bus companies, people. There's a reason that there are not bids from multiple companies. That's because there's no drivers. So bus companies don't have enough drivers to send us bids. Additionally, they don't have buses. So if a company is on the North Shore and they have 20 buses and they have a contract with 3 districts utilizing those 20 buses, when we put out a bid, they can't bid on that job because they don't have the buses to move unless they lose a contract. So it's very hard for a new bid to come out because there's no drivers for these companies and or they don't have the buses to provide to us. So Suffolk, because they already were working with us, their drivers and their buses are with us, so it's easier for them to provide a bid. So I just wanted to clarify that. I know there were some comments about we didn't go out and try. We tried. We did everything we possibly could within the legal ramifications of how you do it, and this is how it kind of came back. And I do think the 5-year deal is a better deal than a 1-year deal because you get to spread it out and it takes time to get to that 3rd year. So I just wanted
We
to comment.
currently now know what we have for the next 5 years, so there is stability in that. They are familiar with our routes. We work, they get rerouted every year. We use a lot of vans between schools. We have extra buses for the middle school, but we get them per the 8-hour day. And they service us and our needs.
I also want to say that Suffolk Transportation has offered to do a study of our routes to see if they can reduce the buses. And the software company that we use to do our routing also gave us a proposal that they believe we can reduce 1 bus. So we're constantly looking at that, and we're trying to find cost savings by reducing buses. And we'll know more about that, though, as the months progress towards summer, because we don't get the full numbers of kids going to parochial, kids going to special schools after IEP meetings, and or just final bus numbers of where kids are going. So we'll know that in the summer if we can reduce some buses.
So can you let everyone know what the savings is for that 1 bus?
That 1 bus that we're talking about reducing would be a savings of $100,000 approximately.
It's actually 114.
Okay, thank you. And that's just one of the larger buses. We're in the summer, we can look at the smaller buses, and we're looking to reduce there as well, but we just won't know until all the CSE meetings are completed.
So where would that savings go? So that would be for the 25-26 year, right? That's what that would.
It would be in our
Are we
budget.
speaking about that email? I just want to make sure I don't say something.
Yeah. So that would, so we budgeted for a certain number that you see on the screen there, right there.
Correct. Right.
So that number would be lower if that happens.
Okay.
But then we would have to figure out, that money shouldn't be like put anywhere. It should be left where it is. And then as we go through and you get your reports from the business official about where we are as our fund balance projections, you as a board can decide what you want to do and how you want to utilize that funding, whether you leave it sit, whether you let it go to fund balance, or whether you put it into a reserve or use it in a different way.
Okay. And is ADS a company that we reached out to, or is that the company that they work for?
So
Suffolk?
It's really nice. The software company, they don't work for Suffolk. They're our
Okay.
software company. They said because we've been a good customer of theirs for many years and we've talked to them about what we're trying to do, they offered to give us a free study, and that study yielded, they believe, one reduced bus.
Is that something that has to be agreed upon? Like, does the bus company have to agree?
Our commitment to the bus company is that they provide us a rate per bus. So if we say we only need 10, they'll give us the 10. They give us up to 18 because that's what we've been using.
Gotcha.
If you want to clarify
And
on
they
that.
only charge us for what we use. It, just bear in mind, and a budget is always an estimate.
Yeah, right.
But we always have our eye on savings. So we always look to see if we can cut and save. And, our budget is balanced. Revenues equal expenditures. However, the way we're able to fund reserves is if we bring our expenses in a little bit lighter. Exactly. And maybe derive more in our revenues. So there is, that eye is always, a budget is a management tool, and you use it and look at it all the time. What that means is probably about 117 students being transferred to other buses, and it's tight. So, and parents may get upset, like, you can't have a play date and bring another child on a bus. There may not be a seat, but we are looking at how we can be efficient in terms of running those buses and routing them within our district.
Gotcha.
So this is the three-part component budget summary. Again, it totals the $105,676,793. This is a required format, and what it does is breaks down the budget between administrative, program, and capital. The largest being the program. That's everything to do with our students and what happens in our buildings. Administrative is a lot of the administrative costs. It is salaries of administrators, clerical of administrative offices, and that's also those in our buildings, our building administrators. It's for all of our insurances, our BOCEs, and other contractual expenses that we have to incur. Our capital component budget is everything to do with our debt service, our buildings and grounds department, capital projects, and that is divvied up between benefits as well that matches those different components. So this slide has been presented before, and it just further delineates what is comprised of our administrative component budget. And you can see, because central office had taken a freeze and our SASA group, our administrators in our buildings and directors have taken a zero base salary. That is actually a reduction. The employee benefits go for the elimination of central office and central office administrator, as well as a building administrator.
Yeah, I want to point out the salaries is not just administrators. It also includes clericals that support administrators. So while their contract goes up, even though the administrators took a freeze at the central office, we reduced one central office administrator. It still balances to minus 187 as opposed to or 87 as opposed to a large number because of those other people that are in that code.
The biggest increases that probably equate to 75% of the administrative budget is our unallocated insurance. That's all of our insurances and our BOCES services. Those were increased. However, within those increases, we've derived a lot of other resources that come along with a firm that is contracted through BOCES. This is a pie chart of our three-part component budget with just a little more description, sort of what I've just shared. That is part of each of those components. The largest, again, program. Next is our capital, and then administrative. These are what happens if our budget fails. This is just key components, elements of our the contingency law. Our vote is on May 20th, 2025, will be from this evening. And if that does not pass, then the Board of Ed may put up a revised budget, the same budget, or just go straight to a contingent budget. If it does fail twice, if it is put up for the June 17th date, and that fails, then it would be a 0%. That means the tax levy would remain at 0, and that we would have a contingent budget. What is part of a contingent budget? That would mean that our overall budget would be reduced $1,573,103. Largely, it's no equipment may be bought, and then some of these programs may need to be considered in those reductions. We also would not be doing the renovations to the bathrooms in the middle school and high school. So in addition to those limits, there's another limit, and that is an administrative budget cap limit. And that is if you take the administrative budget component along with the program budget component, the administrative budget component cannot be more than the year prior. So the year prior's calculation was 11.53%. When you calculate it this year, it's 11.91%. So that would mean that we would have to keep to the 11.53. That would be the maximum. And then this is where the cuts would be made in those three components, coming up to the $1,573,103. So it's always helpful. Sometimes people get nervous, especially if they're new to voting. What does the ballot look like? So we have, the school budget vote is proposition number 1 on the ballot. This is just a sample ballot. Proposition 2 is for our library, and proposition 3 is for our historical society. So that is one side of the ballot. And then this is the trustees, the trustee for the library, as well as those for the school district budget. And I just want to note that it is at the voting is at the same place it is between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 p.m., but in the renovated gym space. So you'll still go to the same area, but you don't have to go downstairs. It's to the left. So I just want to point that out. You'll just follow the crowds. So I just want to thank you. It is all about the students. And this is probably my favorite slide because it shows our students engaging in various activities. And that's why we're here.
And I just wanted to add, this has been a tough process for all of us these last couple of months. It wasn't the news that we started with that we wanted to hear, that we were in a deficit and we had to make up ground and make cuts to certain places. We had many meetings. Many were tough meetings. We heard a lot from the community during those meetings about feelings and things that were wanted. I think the board was responsive and the administration was responsive. And we're putting forward a budget that we feel maintains programs for these students in these pictures. We started the meeting clapping for all those student events and activities, and all of those wonderful things will continue to happen for our kids with our great teachers and administrators in the buildings and our families. And so we just thank you and hope for your support and that you'll come out and vote. Everyone has a right to vote, and we want you to utilize that democratic right in any way you see fit, but we just want you to please come out. So thank you.
Okay, the next item I have is just future, I guess future dates, basically. It's the final voter registration day is at 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the district clerk office on May 15th. And then we have the budget vote and election from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. at the old junior high in the new gym on May 20th. And the annual district meeting will be after the budget vote at approximately 9:15 at the old junior high auditorium on May 20th.
Tom, I'm sorry. Can I just ask real quick? Can I just ask 2 questions of Rhonda?
Sure.
Okay. I just had 2 quick questions. So one is to help me. So like for the future. So on slide 8, when we talked about the maximum allowable levy and the actual tax levy, right? In the years that we came in under, right, which is usually a good thing, right, because you're not like hammering the taxpayers. But when you add those things up, right, times like an average of $1 million budget, it comes out to about $316,000 that we would have had. So in the future, okay, if we're talking about like 0.2 or 0.3%, would it behoove us to just go out at the maximum allowable to help us then fund our fund the fund balances and the reserves?
Yes, so every time you go under the maximum cap, you are starting at a lower base the next year. So that's lost revenue, that because you are subject to a 2% tax cap.
Correct. Yeah.
And you will never get that back.
And it compounds over time.
It does.
Right. Okay. So yes would be the answer. So
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's one. And number 2, I just had the question about the rentals. So like we're getting slammed with insurance costs and utility costs and all these things. For any of these rentals, are we passing these rentals on to the renters, or did we maintain our prices with the rentals, or did we increase our rates because they're being increased on us?
So the leases that we have been in play. The one for the Sayville Elementary School, the back there, that has been renewed. The one that Eastern Suffolk BOCES is the old junior high, that was already settled before I came here, and that's like a 10-year.
Okay, so
So
we're locked into
they have-
long-term.
yes.
leases.
However, they do
So-
pay the electric, so that as the electric rates go up in this building
Right,
over
well,
here,
they should,
do-
because they run the AC
Yes.
24 hours a day.
So there are different, we bill for the electric,
Okay.
other utilities as well.
So we
but
have to wait till the
they-
leases are up then, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
But we insure those buildings because we own those buildings. But we do require, as part of lease agreements, they have to have proof of insurance that, for their contents and things like that.
Right, right. No, that part I understand, but I'm just saying that in everyday life, it's trickle down, everything gets passed down. And if it's getting passed down to us, we should be able to pass it down
Yes.
to the renters as well.
I will say that Eastern Suffolk BOCES is a good tenant because when they had first, inhabited that the old junior high, they did a lot of work, the paving in the front and the parking lots. Those are improvements that they actually paid for.
Okay.
That is our property. Right?
It is.
Right. So we'll
It's a
look
good
into,
working
when
relationship.
those leases are up, we
Right.
we
It
look
is
at what our costs
absolutely,
are.
it is
Yes.
and we look to
absolutely the
adjust
right
it.
thing to do when a lease comes up, to look at the, the inflation rate of
Yeah,
the
and the
7 years
improvements.
they've been there.
Yeah.
and
Okay.
that's to
Price per
increase them.
square footage, and absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
And there are increases worked into those leases.
Right, right.
I believe it's a
each year.
2% increase.
Yes.
Something around
Okay.
that.
Okay.
I have a minor question. So this is the beautiful copy of the proposed budget each board member is given, right? So I also received a copy in Spanish, and I understand by law it has to be available, but if we know people do not need it and it's unnecessary, isn't it a waste of someone's time and of money to print it?
They come from my office, and it is a lot of work, and a lot of the translation, I can say my secretary this year did, but we send a lot out for the translation. It's a law, we're supposed to provide.
No, I understand that, but I don't need a copy
Right.
like this in Spanish,
Yeah.
nor does, I don't want to
Yeah.
speak for anyone else, but
Maybe we-
that's wasted time and money. So moving forward.
Yeah, but we got asked this question at one of the PTA meetings also. The budget booklet is 8 pages. It really could be 4, but we're required by law to print in both Spanish and in English and send those out. So what I do want to do in the future, though, because our budget books, if you compare them to other districts that we send out to the community, is much more detailed because we're trying to be transparent. But if you look at other districts, they provide less information, less charts and graphs, and we could put links so that you don't have to use as many pages and people can click on the link or use a QR code, so we can look at that
No,
too.
just very simply,
Yeah, that
we
one.
don't need
Yes.
this in Spanish,
Got it.
okay? It's a waste of time and money. It's just,
Yes.
this
That's
is
what she means,
beautiful,
yeah.
Yes, I agree.
right?
Correct.
Right, right.
Unless we
Okay.
decide to just.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, so I'll move on to correspondence. So I want to say we received a thank you card from the Fitzpatrick family and community members for the supporting of the Barry Fitzpatrick baseball field dedication. That's what that card was.
Yeah, what an amazing event that was. I mean, so touching. Barbara and her husband, her family were so grateful. Ryan Cox did an amazing job. The baseball team, the shirts, Desmond's wearing one tonight. I mean, it was just such a feel good event. And then to honor the troops as well. It was just really well done. Proud to be part of it, proud to have supported it. And Fitz has got an amazing history here.
I thought the coolest part was the article had how excited the opposing team was to participate in the
Yes.
event. Yeah, I thought that was really cool. It just went to show the gravity of the event.
The Suffolk County.
Was it Suffolk County? Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something about the ceremony. Mr. Fitzpatrick coached for 45 years, Vietnam vet. When you can make gym fun for kids that hate sports, you're doing something right. And I just remember telling, I have 4 sisters, none of them are athletes. They all hated everything athletic. They all loved gym class. He was a special man. To me, that's why I love Sayville. You know what I mean? I felt like we honored someone that gave his heart and soul to this community. And I think Ryan Cox understands the community in ways not everybody does. And I think that was one of the most beautiful things I've been part of. And, you know, Barbara's a friend of a lot of us on the board. Actually went to the prom with Barry's younger daughter. They're just really good people. And that's what, like, normal people that just give their whole soul is what makes this town great.
I also love the fact that there were so many retired teachers that came back who worked with him that were part of it too, and telling me their stories about when he was, I think his sister was there and some other people. It was just a touching event, as you said, but the number of people who are community members and teachers was just really cool.
That's very nice. We also received a thank you letter from Eastern Suffolk BOCES and an email from a parent regarding the budget and 2 emails regarding the conflict with the middle school, the National Honor Society tonight about the budget hearing. Okay. Do you have anything more in your superintendent? No. Okay, then I move on to board discussion. So we have training opportunities from NISBA, modernizing the superintendent's evaluation and enhance efficiency and effectiveness. There's a webinar on May 15th from 12 to 1:30. It will be recorded if registered. And then Nassau Suffolk School Boards has an annual meeting and awards on May 28th at 6 p.m. in Comac. There's also, what is item 2? Meeting format agenda?
I put that on there.
Oh, okay.
I just want to start off by saying thank you to the PTA for the candidates forum that they held. It was really well done. I think all the candidates felt comfortable and able to answer questions, and I think it was informative for the community. I put that on here because not obviously over the last couple of meetings, the budget process has been very bumpy, and there's a lot of tension between the board and the community. And I think that there needs to be some way that we can make this presentation and our back and forth with the community less contentious and more feeling like we're working together instead of against each other. So I had some ideas and I just wanted to kind of throw just things out there. And then really just, we have 2 more meetings left this year. If we can start to gather some information from perhaps what the community wants and what we think we can deliver as a board so that we can talk about it over the summer when we do our workshop, I think that would be helpful. So one of the things is, Tom, it just happened, and this is not an attack on you, it's just the way we do things, is we read the correspondence, we tell people what was asked, but we don't share the answer. So we do a lot of answering via email to people who email us directly. And if it's not something that's personnel that we can't speak about, I don't see why we can't explain perhaps when somebody emails us and says, hey, there was a problem with the conflict tonight. We answered that parent, but we could answer the community that as well, because inquiring minds want to know. So I think that's something that's easy enough for us to tweak, perhaps expanding our correspondence and sort of explaining what some of the answers are would be helpful. And then perhaps creating a format where people submit their questions prior to the meeting, and then we can have answers for them when we get here, as opposed to them coming to the meeting, us trying to scramble at the microphone, which is not easy to answer questions, and then having to follow up with them after. And then the community never hears the loop, the feedback loop. It never seems to come to fruition. And that's sort of, I think, creating a lot of mistrust. So I think we need to really think about ways that we can make these meetings, again, more collaborative and less contentious.
Good.
I think one of the things we could do is question asked, question answered, instead of waiting till the end. I think that sometimes is a big issue, because sometimes if you have 7 people that get up and speak, and we're just waiting till the end to address questions, there have been some times where I've had to remind us that, like, there are questions that we need to answer. And so I think I like the idea of submitting questions, but I remember when I wasn't on the board and sitting in the audience, I would formulate my questions and generate my questions based off what I was hearing and what I was seeing. So, sometimes it can't always be like that, but I do think.
I don't think she's saying require it. I think
No,
she's saying
not required.
offer
Yeah,
it
no,
as an
I know. Like
opportunity.
you have to be able to, like a hybrid. You have to be able to do both. But I do think that if we can answer a question when it's asked, I think that it goes a long way, because then the people feel heard. They feel like their question is addressed. And listen, if we don't know the answer, that's our answer. Our answer is, you know what? That's a good question. We don't have that answer right here. Please call us. We'll talk it over and we will get back to you. And then I know we've discussed, I don't know who brought it up, but I know we've discussed putting something on the website where it's like these questions were asked at last night's board meeting. We did not have the answer at that time.
And
So,
here they are.
and so like an FAQ type of thing, like this was asked yesterday. We didn't have an answer for you, but here is the answer. Any further questions, contact whoever needs to be contacted in that situation. I think that would go a long way.
And I think what Desmond is saying, where if the public has questions and we can answer, it's more we're working together and it's a natural dialogue.
Christine, yeah,
Right.
that's what you mentioned as well.
And I also think that the comments made 2 meetings ago about a budget advisory committee is something we should move on. And I would like to recommend that we come up with a criteria or an email that can go out to the community asking for volunteers. Okay, I know, but I think that goes into building trust and bringing people in the process. And just as we plan in September, October, November, there's an awareness of where we are so that when we get to the budget presentations, we're not taking people by surprise.
Yeah, the first year I came on, one of the things that we had started to do was also not just a budget advisory committee, which I am absolutely in favor of, but also a policy committee. We did have a meeting or two where actually a parent liaison did come to look at our policies. However, the superintendent that was working on that at the time, or assistant superintendent, left, and it didn't really get picked up. And we've kind of scrambled since, but I think that we can implement both of those things rather easily. And get that community input that we need, because it's obvious the community feels frustrated and we need to do something to address it.
I think to go into our conversation, it could be combined in a combined committee, basically, because I think if we look at each committee, there might not be enough to do, but if we incorporate, say, a policy committee and the budget committee, that might be a good idea.
Well, one of the things that is in a board policy that has not been in place for a while is as each building, like Sunrise Drive or Lincoln or Cherry or the middle school has a site-based committee or shared decision-making committee, there is the room for like a central office shared decision-making committee where you could invite parents to kind of give feedback to the central office team, and the Board of Ed members sit on that group, and you can have.
And I have to say, as a board, we don't get, or I don't feel like we've been informed of what some of the outcomes of those site-based committees are. And I think that would be more helpful too, because it would make us more aware of what the issues are in the buildings. And perhaps we can get ahead of some things instead of be behind them.
Okay.
So we're gonna look into putting together some sort of like framework for a budget advisory committee, because I've sat on a budget advisory committees for about 10 years. I can tell you that ours could be tweaked, and so I would like to help them like change some of the things that of the ones that I've been a part of, and to bring them here to, because it'll be a basic framework, and then we could just I could tell you this hasn't worked like from experience. And
yeah, and I think it's the kind of thing we could put together in the next month or two, finalize it over the summer, and then in September invite parents to participate.
Yeah, I think it's important. It's important step.
It's definitely something we have to take time. I don't want to just rush it. I want to get it to be structured properly, get your input, get input from families, and then put it out in September.
And in the spirit of answering the question from a correspondence regarding the schedule change of this meeting, you answered that.
Yeah, I did. So the way that the calendars are organized is that we set up our board meetings first, and then we have a calendar meeting at the end of the year that's organized by a particular individual who then invites people to come to the calendar meeting and put their events on the calendar. And at that meeting, they're supposed to put the different events so that they don't conflict as much as possible, and certainly not on board meeting nights with National Junior Honor Society nights. The person who put that calendar together is no longer with the district, but made a mistake and did not put this budget hearing on that original calendar. So when they got together for the calendar meeting and they put everything on it, the Honor Society meeting got put on the same date. When the person realized that it wasn't on there, instead of telling everybody, oh, it's on there, it wasn't on there, we have to fix it, they just put it on the calendar over the summer and told nobody. And so then until about a month ago, we didn't realize that there was these two events at the same time. We're going to structure that a little differently so we have multiple eyes on it instead of just one person, and it shouldn't happen again.
Anything more on the budget advisory committee? No? Okay. And then we have the cell phone ban.
Yeah, so with the governor's announcement or the approval of the budget, as many of you know, they tie laws and rules to the budget process in the state, they came out with a cell phone ban policy. Currently, we have policies in our high school and middle school regarding how cell phones are stored. And we thought we had a very good process where we have a caddy at the front of the door of every classroom, and the kids put their phones in the caddy. They go to class, they participate. We do believe that helps with engagement in the classroom and focus, because we don't have kids checking their phones during the class. However, the state cell phone ban says by August 1st, we need to collaborate with our high school, middle school, elementary schools, communities, and come up with a bell-to-bell cell phone ban, which means from the moment a kid enters the school, they hand their cell phone over to a spot. We have to come up with a storage and a tracking system so the kids can have their phones safely stored and then get them at the end of the day, but they would not be able to access phones, watches, or any internet devices from the beginning of school to the end of school unless they had a medical reason to have it. Then there's some exceptions in that regard. And then the district, Amy DiMiola, is going to work with Jillian Macris, the high school and middle school administration, and the principals at the elementaries to look at our current policies and figure out what does this mean for us and how can we implement it. The crazy thing from the state is that they say it has to be in place by August 1st. So they only told us literally last week about the exact details, and now we have to, we've been planning for this. We've been talking about it. Ms. Bricker has been working with other administrators at the high school, as an example, knowing this was coming, but we knew it was coming, but we didn't have all the details. So now that we have all the details, we can begin to kind of talk about what this is going to look like. But the rule is, from the state, they say we have flexibility in how we store it, what we store it in, but we don't have flexibility in like it being available or not available during the day. Yeah.
So are they, is the state implementing the consequence for having a phone? Like how, like so listen, I understand. And I understand the data behind it. I don't agree with any of it because I'm not a big fan of mandates. And I feel like this is the state coming down and telling, again, what parents are allowed to do with their kids. And much like, sending a 2-year-old to preschool and telling them they have to wear a mask, and, putting masks on teachers of nonverbal kids when they're supposed to be looking at a mouth and learning how to read, but, they have to wear a mask. So I just don't like, I feel like, again, to me, this is more of like the reorganization type of thing where we're doing something and it's working well. And we're ahead of the curve in this thing, much like we are in the reorganization. Yet we're being told to do something that we're already doing fairly well.
Yeah.
And I understand it. I understand the bullying, and I do. I get all of that. I just don't like someone up here telling us down here that we have to.
Right.
And that's all. I know I have no say in it because it is what it is. Like we have to abide by it, but I just want to be on record that I have a major problem.
Yeah, I think that we were very happy with the system that we had. And when the state asked us for feedback before they implemented, our feedback, and many districts around here and in Long Island and New York, feedback was, we can come up with a system, please give us some local control. And so they said in their opening, good news, we're giving you local control. You get to decide how you hold them or what color the box is that you're going to put it in. But it has to be this way. And the other thing that they said with consequences, if a child breaks the law or the rule and brings their phone or hides their phone, and we know kids are going to get burner phones and put one in the box and walk one into class because that's what kids naturally will do. They're smarter than the rules, right? We are not allowed to suspend a child for breaking the rules. So then how do we enforce, right? So it's kind of another hamstring on the process. But it didn't say detention. It just said no suspension.
Right. So one other thing, in addition to medical reasons, if it's in their IEP for academic purposes, because in my years, I did have many students who could utilize their phone for academic, they had to within the classroom.
Right. And now our kids do get Chromebooks, and the Chromebooks do have internet access, and they are allowed to use the Chromebooks for internet access, but it has to be directed by the teacher as it is now. And we have GoGuardian on it and all those features. But yes, you're correct. If it's on their IEP that they need it for an instructional reason or for a medical reason or a 504 reason. Correct. Yes. Yeah. But much of the devices now that we give our kids do have talk to text. And so that's been improvement in the software that we use.
Yeah, I just want to say that, so there was discussion, a lot of the schools, and I get the local control thing and how Sayville's been way ahead of the curve on controlling the cell phones, especially at the high school, than most schools on Long Island. And I get the frustration, but it is what it is, as Desmond has said. The district had said, the state said it's going to make funds available. What some of the schools that are doing are they use what's called yonder pouches, and there are these pouches. If you've ever been to like a comedian lately, they make you put your cell phone in these pouches, which are very, very expensive. You know, I think it would be hard. We'd be hard felt to try to spend a lot of money on them if it wasn't able to come through a grant.
Yeah, so they specified that they set aside for the entire state of New York $12 million to support
It's
schools
nothing.
with whatever system we come up with. There are some that have trucks outside, and the kids put it in the, you know, there's a man. You have to staff it, and then you have to watch them, and you have to make sure no one's, you know, we're talking about, you know, 600 cell phones that are going to come into a high school, or 800, sorry. And you have to have a place to put them, store them, keep them safe, lock them up, you know, whatever you want to do. So there's going to be discussion about how we do that. And then the state has not yet specified, like, is there a login on the state portal where we can say, we have this many phones, it costs us this much, we want this much, or how much we'll get. So they haven't defined that yet.
Yeah.
It's a borderline unfunded mandate.
Of
Yeah,
course.
Possibly.
Pretty much.
I do want to say though, I have been to 2 conferences that had, and I know I've said this before, administrations that have put in the bell to bell cell phone, and the after the initial shock of it, you know, 4 to 8 weeks is what they say is sort of the trial term, but after that, the positives that come out of it. And I keep thinking the news said we're the largest state, but they're respecting 25 states to have this, and both sides of the aisle, that the high school teachers specifically, especially, are just saying they can't compete anymore. They cannot teach, they cannot engage, they cannot do the things that they can do in an elementary school level where they don't have this cell phone issue.
Yeah, I think that very few people are disagreeing that cell phones are a distraction, and we want to make sure that teachers have the ability to keep them out of the classroom so they can teach and keep kids focused. I think to Desmond's point, it's the how to do it should be in our venue, not like being dictated to us. But I do think it's been beneficial having the kids put them in the pouches, because now they're focused when they do group work, where they're doing other activities in the classroom with the teacher. They're more focused, and teachers have felt that way. So, but for them to come up with you have to do it this way, yet you have local control on how, it's kind of backhanded. Amy, you've been doing some research and talking about this a little bit. Do you have anything to add just in regards to what other rules or procedures they're kind of rolling out for us?
I think we covered some of the exceptions. I know another exception that was mentioned was translating. Another exception that was mentioned was if a student happens to be a routine caregiver of a family member. The law also provides for schools to ensure parents have at least one way to contact their child during the school day, and that the school is expected to communicate what that way is at the beginning of every school year and upon enrollment. And there's also, you know, provisions for how the process is done to create that policy. Like, for example, you know, collecting stakeholder feedback. It's going to be an expedited process, but I think in the spirit of clear communication, we'll be gathering feedback from all types of stakeholders, bargaining units, community members, parents, students, and posting clearly on the website what our policies are. There's also a provision for starting September 1st, 2026, and every September 1st thereafter, there needs to be a report on any like delinquencies and what the consequences are for those students, and with any non-identifiable features, but to the extent that we can, possible demographics, so that we can identify any demographics that are disproportionately represented, and then take steps to make sure that that's not the case. So those are some of the other additional things to bear in mind, all before August 1st.
So I guess my next question would be will there be quantifiable data that is collected? Are we going to have data based on graduation rate, four-year school rate, instances of bullying, instances of violence, all the reasons that they're stating that they're taking this away, that we can then look back at in 3 years after this and be like, oh, wow, this has improved after this. Our graduation rate has improved. Our kids going to four-year schools have improved. Our kids, there's less issues of bullying in the school. So is there going to be some sort of quantifiable data that the state is going to look at that we can provide to them, where we can say like, hey, we're still here, right? Or in fact, it's gone up, or if it's gone down, and is there something that we can
Every
we're being asked to
every
track?
year we're required to submit to the state on instances of violent behavior, on instances of bullying, DASA reports,
Yeah,
et
right.
cetera, so forth. So those numbers get reported to the state, and then if we're disproportionate in any category, they tell us and we have to rectify it. So that data exists. So I would imagine we're going to also be providing, incidents of taking cell phones and all that.
Yeah, correct.
And then you'll probably be able to, whether we do it or the state puts out, it will be trackable, because we do track all those things.
Yeah.
Don't we still, do we still administer that pride survey as well?
That happens every couple of years.
Right.
I'd have to check to see the last time we did
And
that.
it's
but-
almost, it's closer to, it's not, but it's closer in the direction of mental health, like in terms of drug use and like those sorts of things. So it's different than the behaviors. It's more about the attitudes and the thinking of kids. Because like if you're trying to discern the impact, it's not always going to show in behavior. A lot of it's internal, because these are emotional and psychiatric problems that are manifesting.
Yeah, I mean, but one can argue that the last set of mandates we had led to that.
Yeah, well, we do a school climate
No.
survey every couple of years.
Well,
and that
I mean,
would
to be
help.
candid, I look at this, I'm very happy we're having this discussion. And we're in the midst of a major mental health crisis. To Christine's point, though, is we already, the way I looked at it, no cell phones in schools, we're already compliant.
Correct. That's
So
more my
like,
point.
I know that they're defining it differently and they're describing exactly. That I find frustrating because I feel like we're there already.
I think from the conferences that I went to, we moved in that direction when we prioritized education and we took it out of the classroom. But what the schools that went to the bell to bell ban talk about was engagement among peers, engagement in the hallways, engagement at lunch, the prevention of putting your earphones on and walking around your cell phone and not having to engage. And that led to a whole bunch of other positive effects that reduced bullying, reduced anxiety, because it was like they had to take their armor off because they couldn't cocoon. So I think we went there educationally, but I think that what I heard at these, and I went to two separate ones, was that it expanded beyond that. And not only that by the end of that 4 to 8 week transition, parents were actually saying that they saw a difference at home as well. So it's bigger than that. From look, again, that's what their experiences were. I think that's what the state is hoping for. It would be wonderful if we got to that as well.
Yeah, I think the effects are unarguable. I think we all know what the effects will be. I think it's going to be no doubt.
Okay. If there's no other comments, I'd like to move to public comment. Anything
Yes, sir.
else? Okay, good. Before we have public comment, I just want to read our board policy. According to Sayville School Board Policy 1230, we request the following. Participants in public session must demonstrate civility as they address the board and community. 30 minutes have been set aside for comments by the public. The board reserves the right to limit or extend public participation if it deems necessary. Comments and questions from the public are limited to 3 minutes per person and should be related to school matters. Speakers are requested to identify themselves or the group they represent and direct their comments to the board. The board will not permit discussion involving individual students, district personnel, or community members. The full policy is available on the district website, and we appreciate your support to have a productive meeting. Thank you. So if I can have a show of hands of who would like to speak. Okay. So the gentleman in the second row, you can go first.
You don't need me on the podium, right?
Yeah, we do. Just because the microphone picks up for the people at home. It's this one. Chris.
Yeah, but it's all right. You can, from there, I can hear you.
Hi all, I'm Chris Robertson. The reason, I just have a couple of quick questions. I've heard this presentation now 4 different times, and I'm a little disappointed that I thought the executive and the legislative budget would hopefully have a little bit more than the executive, but that's nothing we can do about here. real quick, I am running for the Board of Ed. If I am elected, I would love to be part of that committee. With one of the things when I started to run in like March, when I read about the students wanting how they're mandated now to be part of the board, I would also love to be on that committee if that's doable after the election, hopefully. The second issue is like when you were talking about the designation, Rhonda, of no designation and how we're up to that 15. When does that get to a designation and when does that start affecting our rating? Because I think the last meeting you said was AA plus, if I remember.
Okay, so I think you're confusing two things.
Well,
so-
Can I just clarify?
yeah.
So you said that no designation could eventually affect the credit rating, correct? Okay, so at what point does that start to affect? That's what I was really asking. Sorry.
Okay, so no designation becomes susceptible at about 28, 29. So our Moody's rating is based on the performance on our budgets, what our reserves are, current ratios. So there's a couple of different criteria of which they rate us at. And we did recently have a Moody's rating, and it was, we did not get downgraded. But there was, so we still are an AA1, which is wonderful because when you have a rating such as AA1, that means that you, people who want to sell you their bonds provide you a more competitive interest rate.
So the second part to my question is, if we drop that from no designation to acceptable, right, at 28, then we start paying more in interest, right? Would that affect our credit rating? Is that what I'm hearing correct?
So that would affect our credit rating ultimately when we go through another Moody's bond rating. We just obtained new serial bonds. So as part of that process, we had to go through a Moody's rating.
And I
We
want to,
had an AA1 and then we went through its detailed questions. It's about a 2-hour conference call with representatives of Moody's who rate.
Just to further elaborate on that, do we know the equation that gives us that designation so we can look to the future and go, hey, listen, let's get this under back to 10 or 8 or
Yes.
whatever it is?
Yes, we do.
We know that equation.
and we're aiming to get it down.
Right,
Yeah,
of
yes.
course.
And that's basically based on our fund balance, our reserves, and our expenditures and our revenue, and making sure that, you know, your revenues are up, your expenditures are down, and your reserves are growing, not shrinking.
All right, thank you.
And those are things that we are partially able to control. The things we're not able to control, which is also part of a fiscal stress score, is the environmental piece.
And can you describe what entails that?
So that's more demographics, what's the economic growth of our community, average income, household incomes, things like that. And also, do we have, no one coming out on our annual budgets? Because we do know.
Yeah, they base it on how many percentage of your community members come out and vote. So the more people that vote, you get score points, and it brings your rating down. If nobody came out to vote, whether it passes or fails, your score goes up in a bad way. So
Because it
we do
shows
have,
no
but we do have a
interest in the
good community
community.
participation rate, so that helps our score in the environmental section.
Thank you.
Next.
Good evening. My name is Marissa Grosso. I have a son in Sunrise, a daughter in the middle school, and a daughter in the high school. But tonight I'm speaking on behalf of a parent at Sunrise Drive who was unable to be here this evening. I'm going to read what she wrote. Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Ferris, and fellow community members. First, thank you for the work that you have done on this budget so far. I know the process is difficult, and I appreciate your time and dedication. In weeks, you've heard powerful testimony from our students and families about issues that matter deeply to them. I am grateful that some of those concerns have been addressed in the revised budget. But tonight, I want to speak for the children who could not stay up late past their bedtime and attend these meetings, our youngest learners. Hoping the district will receive additional state funds state aid, we hope to have a chance to make a meaningful investment that will benefit a large number of students, especially at the elementary level where foundational learning takes place. We've heard it said that all academic programs are fully supported, but when math AIS time is reduced and when support staff is being pulled from kindergarten classroom, that doesn't reflect full support. It reflects a step backwards. Specifically, it has been stated that aid time in kindergarten will be reduced to just 1 hour per day. How is this fully supporting children who are learning to manage routines, navigate social interactions, and begin academic learning all at once? These children need more guidance and not less. Having one adult in a room for most of the day severely limits both caring and the learning that takes place. At the same time, the curriculum has become more rigorous across the elementary grades. Our classrooms should be staffed in a way that reflects the growing demands placed on both students and teachers, not the other way around. And with class sizes increasing, we need for small group instruction, individualized attention, and strong support systems is more urgent than ever. Reassuring math AIS and retaining current aid support in kindergarten isn't just a nice idea. It is a necessary one. And if we want to uphold the standard of education we promise to every student, we owe it to our children to provide the strongest possible foundation in early years. Let's use this moment and these potential possible additional funds to invest where it counts the most. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to address this. I'm trying not to, but I just want to say, I agree with you wholeheartedly, especially about the aides in kindergarten. But we did not get any extra funds. That's the problem. We have to go to the state. If we don't have lobbying at that level, we won't get any extra money. Without extra funds, we can't provide things. We also have to provide things that are mandated. For instance, the cell phone lockers or whatever you want to call them. I saw them at a convention and they're very interesting, but they're very expensive. So let's see what we're going to do and how we're going to pay for it. It's really unfortunate the way.
We need a whole, it should be all around.
Yes, and reporting and going to the state and giving demands on the people that you elect to support you. That's very important.
I think, I think and I don't want to place one in front of the other, but I think the kindergarten aides is something that, we should look at, because 1 hour a day, I mean, I've taught kindergarten, okay? And I had a full-time aide, I had a full day aide, and I would have drowned without her. So, the strain that it must put on the teacher, I don't know if people fully understand the amount of prep that goes in to a kindergarten day. Like, I teach 5th grade, and I would never go down to kindergarten ever.
I have to say,
Because I can walk into my 5th grade class and I can prepare a lesson at the snap of a finger, or my kids are so independent where I can have them read a chapter, in Harry Potter while I prepare for my next 3 lessons and get that done. In kindergarten, every single lesson requires a massive amount of prep. So I feel really strongly about that. Like I said, I hate to put one in front of the other, but if the kindergarten aid thing is something that can be addressed, I think 1 hour a day is unacceptable for us.
I just have to say, I agree with you. I love kids, especially little 5-year-olds. They're adorable. To teach them and to keep them contained, to learn something.
Engaged, not contained.
Engaged. Do it. And I do agree with you wholeheartedly that I think an aid is necessary to give them. That's where it starts. That's where they learn the difference between A, B, C. That's where they learn the very basic knowledge. It's very important. And if we can't keep them contained, I just want to say engaged. Contained. Have you been in a kindergarten class? It's contained.
Fair enough.
If I may, mine's broken, but I totally agree.
And it's even so much more than ABC.
No,
They're
I
not
know that. I
napping,
do
there's
know
very
that.
little playtime,
I
and
agree with
it's a
you.
rigorous curriculum, and that's a huge task for
Yes.
one person.
I'll be honest, I was shocked when I found out they only had them for 2 hours.
Right now,
Yeah.
there's 2
Yeah.
hours, right? But I want to say something else. The principals will have discretion among their library aides and their kindergarten aides to maneuver hours depending on needs. So we'll look into that.
Yeah, I also think there's so many unknowns that we have to look, like, I don't think we can promise this tonight, but I
Right.
think that
We're
there are
always
some
looking.
knowns that may happen to us positively and then some that may not. So,
One of the things we're doing is we're looking at our aid staffing. We put out aid letters about who's in what buildings. And then once we have those numbers, principals will be able to get together and relook at this. So that number of an hour is an estimate. It was 2, but there is library 8 hours that could be adjusted or other area 8 areas that could be adjusted. But we'll have to look at and talk to the principals about where they think the best needs should be met. So those are not closed case situation, as Christine was saying.
Good. And also, it's been brought to my attention that those hours may not be consistent when the aide is there, and that's extremely important for it to be
When you say
consistent.
consistent, what do you mean?
The timing of when the aide is there,
Okay, right.
right? Because the teacher needs to be able to maximize on that additional adult in the
Right,
room.
right.
So we need to make note of that.
Right. It shouldn't be during snack time. It should be during a time that
Well,
there's
it shouldn't be
instructional.
during snack time, but it also, it
Well,
would be helpful if it were the same time because routine is so important.
correct.
And it just makes it easier for the teachers to plan.
Right.
Okay, we can discuss that.
You're so patient. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm gonna be quick, I promise. I wanted to first just thank everybody because at the last Board of Ed meeting, I spoke about one of the high school classes. And it ended up, we do have a second teacher in that class now. Not sure the structure 100% yet, but my main concern with that was, like, I know Dr. Ferris and I, we spoke that when you had pulled that second teacher out, it was thought that there was only gonna be 5, 6 students in that class, when in reality there is 20, which is kind of alarming to me that the Board of Ed and no one else knew that when the decision was made, and maybe I misunderstood this, that the recommendations, and I know that meetings are still going on. I just had mine the day of the last Board of Ed meeting, which is why I knew. Yeah. But like, are there any other classes or programs and things like that were cut that the parents may not be aware of? Because if I didn't have my meeting that morning and I didn't ask the question, I would have had no clue that my child in September would have went into a classroom with 20 kids, about 17, 18 of them with IEPs or 504s with one teacher. And I'm sure that hopefully somebody would have caught that from April to September. However, what if it didn't? So my main concern is there are other general ed students and special ed students who are in ICT or in a classroom that needs more support. Are there any other classes from K to 12 that has something like that, that maybe we don't know the numbers because the meetings are still happening and recommendations aren't fully through?
No, all the IEPs are being adhered to, and all the classes that were co-taught are co-taught. That was the only class that at the time we thought the numbers were very low. There are some sections that might split as a result of more kids going in, but that's just a standard bill. What you do is you add a section of co-teaching because there's more than a certain number of kids. But as of right now, there's no other classes like that.
I just wanted to make sure because again, not only for my son, but teachers and every other child in the district that is in that situation. Also, you guys had brought up like the new format for a Board of Ed meeting. I can tell you from sitting at every Board of Ed meeting last year, being almost in tears, and I did cry at a few Board of Ed meetings because of the situation with the whole soccer thing. I think that things would have been very different if it was more of a back and forth at the meetings, because it would have shown us some empathy, and it would have showed us that the people sitting up there were listening to us instead of cutting us off and kind of making faces, and body language was not always the greatest. So I think that would 100% save tension between the community and you guys up there to start kind of enforcing something like that. Because there are a lot of things that we asked and emails that we sent and questions that we asked, but things that we never got answers for. So even like you know what, we'll look into that, or we're sorry for whatever, it would have went a really long way. And I know Dr. Ferris, you and I had spoke about that.
Yep.
But since it was brought up, I felt like it was something that I just, being that I was on that side, I think it would go, a little bit goes a long way. And I think that would have went a long way last year.
I agree with you, and that's why I'm answering you right now.
Yeah, and Maureen, thank you for all years of your service. I think it's a thank you last time.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else?
Jeez.
Hey everyone, I'm Jason Roll. Just a couple of quick comments about this process and the board. I'm really excited that you guys are considering doing that community engagement committee. I have, as part of the campaign for going to try and join you guys, I've put together a plan for what I think that committee can look like, what it can be made up of, what its deliverables can be, and kind of how it can be structured. So I'm really excited to maybe engage with you guys on those ideas. Just in terms of the budget itself, I've now sat through kind of this presentation 4 plus maybe 5 times in the last month, and I always learn something new every time I listen to it. And I don't think that's because as a community we're listening to different parts of it. I think it's because it changes every time, just in terms of what the points of emphasis are. In between, every time you give it, I'm sure you get a different question, and then you amend your presentation going forward. I think it really does show what the community brings to the table here, because our questions are good and they're valid and they bring forward other discussion and things that need to be clarified. But the point is, we shouldn't have to do that. The information that we're getting firsthand from the board should be complete, and it should be understandable and digestible the first time the community hears it. It shouldn't take 3, 4, 5 iterations or presentations to get to the detail that people need and want. So just an idea of going forward. The presentation is great. I know it's difficult to do that over and over again, but the consistency with the messaging, I think, is what really needs to be looked at. And then I think one other thing on, just really quickly on the cell phone issue. I, just as a word of caution, from my industry and what I do, dealing with that kind of stuff, please consult a fire marshal with whatever you guys recommend. The lithium-ion batteries that are in those cell phones can have serious fire implications. If you're going to put 600 of them in one room, please just consult with the fire marshal with whatever it is you do, because there are serious safety concerns with putting that many lithium-ion batteries in one place. And if you need any help with that, I can help you, but please just make it part of your process.
I appreciate that, and we will definitely take that into account. I also want to just comment on the iterations of the budget. In a typical budget year, we present, you guys give us feedback, it's clear, we present again, and it's the same. I hope it comes across, even though we were making adjustments along the way, that we were being responsive to the community's concerns, and that we were trying to say, okay, we got to listen to some of the things that people have to say, take that into consideration, and then put out another version. And I don't think we would have had to do that if we weren't in a situation where we found out at a very late date that we were short revenue in the way that we didn't expect. So I appreciate the comment, though, and I really think that we can do a much better job next year, starting in September, October, November, even getting a budget advisory committee together, sharing with the community, even if it's good news or bad news, where we are and where we're heading in a very clear way with all the numbers, so people aren't surprised at all in January when we start to present our first time.
Absolutely. And to that point, these are the same people that come to these meetings year after year, and I've sat through many presentations from this budget from this committee. And I think what needs to be the concern is how do these people sitting here today believe that after last year we listened and everything was great and everything was perfect, then we find out that there were 2 $700,000 mistakes on the budget that didn't get caught. So what reason does this community have to sit before the same people on this board and make sure we got it this time?
And your point 2 meetings ago resonated with me as a sports person myself. We feel we lost the locker room, and we want to get the locker room back. So we're going to do everything we possibly can to show in earnest and in the most clear and transparent way that we're aiming to do that for this community. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thanks for that information about the batteries.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I never thought of that.
Good evening. I want to stand up here tonight on behalf of the 10 plus elementary age students that came here tonight in their little outfits with well curated speeches. Their intention was made clear. I actually had a conversation with Dr. Ferris that they came here to speak on behalf of their assistant principal. We had talked about maybe them speaking first. I just would love if moving forward in the spirit of transparency, if we could make note of those things mentally as a board and say, wow, there are still children here after awards were given out. Let me allow them their 90 seconds before I run through an hour and a half budget presentation, because it is a little bit of a slap in the face for these kids to come here after doing something like this and preparing something like this, to get up here in front of adults. It takes guts for these little ones to prepare something to do that. And then to finish Rhonda's, presentation by saying it's all for the children. It didn't feel that way tonight. And again, in the spirit of transparency, Christine has mentioned that there has not been a back and forth dialogue. I sat at every one of these meetings for years with many of the same people in the room. We've literally been begging for that for years. So for this to come 1 week prior to an election feels a little bit like convenient planning. But we are here for the kids. I believe every person that sits in this room every week or every month until 10 o'clock at night is here for the kids. We want to feel that from the board as well. All right. They didn't have their chance to speak tonight, so you should know that 10 kids under the age of 10 did come here tonight to speak on behalf of Mr. Bullis. And Maureen, I also thank you for your service.
And
You
I'm
have
sorry-
been.
I'm sorry, I would have loved to have heard the kids. I didn't realize they were here.
I apologize. I knew we talked about it, but I didn't see them, so I thought they maybe did.
They were little, but they were here.
I'm
They were
sorry.
all in these empty seats
I
and in the
didn't-
lobby and.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
I would have loved to.
It's just unfortunate because they love Mr. Bullis, as do the rest of us that
Yes.
go to Lincoln Avenue. This decision is affecting over 440 students and their families, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. We would have loved for their words to have been heard on his behalf, but unfortunately, they didn't get that opportunity tonight, 1 week before the
Okay.
election. So.
If they'd be willing to send us their speeches, we could share it with the Board of Education, because I think they'd want to hear them. But-
Sure.
But that's different if they're
I
not
understand, of
speaking.
course, of course.
Because Risa and I even had thought how nice it would have been to hear the three read their essays.
Right.
Right?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
We are here for the kids,
Yes.
right? And we should
For
give
sure.
them that platform. I mean, the high
Yeah.
school students at the last meeting were incredible. They stood up, they advocated for their music teacher, and it worked. We were trying to instill that same value in these little elementary school kids, that they should use their voice for good and fight the good fight, regardless of the outcome. And tonight, they left here defeated and feeling unheard. So
Okay.
it's a shame.
I apologize. I was not aware of that.
I was looking and I just
yeah.
didn't see them. I thought.
I didn't have any idea. Otherwise, I would have liked to have heard what they had to say. Sorry.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good evening, Ryan Amoya. First and foremost, thank you, Dr. Ferris, Desmond, Kathy, for responding to my email. Transparency, that was that parent email, I believe. I asked a technical question that I want to bore everyone with. I appreciate the technical answer and both your individual responses to at least acknowledge the email and some of the concerns I had in there. Budget book was really helpful. I did, and I'm going to plead ignorance with this question, for the budget, bus budget of the $5.5 million. When you look at the details, about $3 million of that, which is also 66% of the increase for the current year, relates to handicap and out of district. Can you just provide a bit of color on what that entails?
Sure.
It's just the biggest piece of the transportation budget.
Sure. So we're required by law, in addition to, if any students get busing outside of the district for special education, we're required to provide that busing for them out of the district. We also are required for parochial and private schools within 15 miles. So if parents live in the community and they have till April 1st to put in a request, and we're obligated to adhere to that request. So the interesting thing, to your point, is that the regular busing, which is 18 buses, is about an increase of $200 and something thousand, whereas the handicapped and special busing, which includes those things I just spoke about, is almost a $900,000 increase. And it's because there are some buses that are medical buses, and they might be one student with medical equipment and an aide and a nurse that goes on the bus with the child. Those buses are extremely expensive, and if you get one student going to a location, that could raise the cost quite a bit. But we also have parochial schools, and I don't know if you want to add to that, but those there are 4 kids on a bus, 5 kids on a bus.
It's nature of service.
Yeah, and they have to go distances. We also are required by law to provide busing for any homeless students who are in the district who may not be in the district. So there are some students who live quite a distance away that we have to go get and bring here because they were part of our district before they became homeless. So these are just requirements. So that code is much higher than even the code for the 18 regular buses that provide service just within the district.
Okay. Now, someone refuses to take the bus, I know nothing
Yeah.
about it. It's just they're big numbers, and so it's helpful to understand.
Yeah, and one of the things we are looking to do, in addition to looking at our big buses, we're looking at the small buses and seeing how we can reduce those as well. The issue there is we can't know that until the summer because all of those CSE meetings haven't taken place yet. So once they're concluded, then we can assess who's going where. We also try to work with other districts like Connecticut and Bayport. So if they have a student going to St. Anthony's and we have a student going to St. Anthony's, and Connecticut as a student go to St. Anthony's, we share a bus so the cost gets reduced, but it still costs money to send kids to these outside locations.
Okay. And I do have other technical questions up to you. I'll send them directly to
Beautiful.
you guys. I
Yeah.
don't know for everyone to ask you. We could start the ask and answer process with me. I'm happy to be the guinea pig.
And we could post the answers on the internet. So, okay.
The one thing I did have a question on, in the printing office category, there's a new charge for $122,000 for miscellaneous BOCES. Is that the covert security that we talked about at a previous meeting and it's just in printing?
Is that possible, Rhonda?
We added public relations, but that's not 122.
And that's through a BOCES code. The 122 is the covert security cost, but I think.
122.4 to the penny. So I'm
Yeah.
assuming it's that. It was in printing office. I just wanted to make sure it was the same thing.
We'll have to look
It's
into
probably it's probably covert. That is the cost of covert.
Is there any reason why it would be in the printing section?
I did not know that it was in printing.
We're going to look into that and get back to you.
I mean,
But that is an aidable expense.
Yes, it
That's
would,
why we
yeah,
want
covert
it.
is
I
in
agree.
yeah.
I just saw it miscellaneous in
Yeah.
printing and I'm like,
So it might be a miscellaneous in addition to print, right? I'll look into that and get back to you.
and maybe it's just a piece of unsolicited advice. When we look through the budget book, there's a lot of other and miscellaneous. And I think when you try to look through things like that, when we talk about transparency, that lends itself to questions and misunderstandings. That we could be more transparent, to use that word of the day, of what things actually relate to. I think that goes a long way in helping us understand what these costs are and why we're paying them.
Yeah.
So these are inherited titles, and both
I'm not blaming anyone.
Ms. DiMiola and myself have worked at trying to. I don't like miscellaneous. I'd rather see it in a more descriptive
I think, yeah,
fashion.
I agree. When I look at it, it just adds up to millions and millions of other miscellaneous. They have no clue where this money is actually
Yeah.
going at the end of the day.
So if they were miscellaneous, why couldn't we have changed them?
This is years and years of using miscellaneous. It's a whole revamping of the budget. I mean, if that's a project that
I think it's something we should do.
yeah, and we have done
Obviously.
it. We have done it in many codes, but not the 100%.
Well,
You have to
Okay.
start somewhere. I
Well-
think
And we
you said
have.
they have started.
We have.
But
we
it's
have.
going to take a while.
Okay. The next question.
And I just want to clarify something. I'm not big on rumors, so I'm hoping to pull them to bed on the UPK revenues and whether they were double counted or whatnot. Can you provide a little color on what's going on
Yeah,
there?
do you want to provide the answer to that?
Yeah, there was no double counting. What had happened was in the revenue section of state aid, UPK was added, and that was an error. Because if you look at the state aid runs on the state website, it's included there. I don't know why just that one is. However, so that was included in state aid. However, on our debt service section, we were doing a budget 3 times last year with foundation aid. We had all of our wishes in, then 3.4 million cut, and then another budget redone with some of those things that were added back. So initially, when we had embarked on the budget process, we were going with a serial bond last year. And in that process, that was more costly. So then we converted to a ban. What was left in the debt service was the serial bond too. So you take a revenue out that you're not getting, you take out an expenditure that you're not getting, the two negated one another.
They were in essence 2 mistakes that were different, and then they canceled
And
that.
then, yes, so the effect on
not
the
a
budget was
great-
none.
Just with that rumor to bed, there was we didn't overstate our revenue and have to back it up this year.
No.
Got just to play on the printing, 39,000 incremental this year, or this upcoming year compared to the prior year.
I'll have to look into that and get back to you.
Seems like a big number when we're trying to. cut
Yeah, I
costs
think
in
there was,
this
I
day
think there was a
and age.
consolidation of some codes, but
Okay,
I'll-
there's still
I'll-
about 7 or 8 other printing lines throughout the budget. See 40,000 of.
I think you're referring to postage, not
Postage,
printing.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
so if it's postage,
So-
then we have an answer to that. So the postage, there's postage in 5 buildings, and then we have the postage machine that sends the postage out in this building. So in addition to the fact that postage is just up in general and being increased again 7 cents per whatever in July, we were taking postage from the buildings, bringing them here, putting them in our machine here, and then sending them, and then moving money from the building codes to the central office code to cover the cost. So instead of doing that, we just didn't put the money in the building codes and put all the money in the central office code. So it looks like a big increase, but really we were just taking it so we don't have to keep doing budget transfers because our machine is here in central office.
So ignore the other 7, 8 lines of postage throughout the budget, just focus on the central postage.
Yeah, because
And-
the other ones are down probably.
And comparatively, there was, in prior fiscal years, during COVID, there was a lot of things that were not mailed out, but there has been an increase in postage. And there is still postage that is part of some buildings. They send certified mails and other mailings out, separate and distinct from our central office mail machine.
Gotcha. And look in today's day and age, along with the printing, mailing stuff out, seems a little.
Yeah, we're looking to streamline a lot of areas in the district that do printing, such as personnel forms, personal day forms, even pay stubs. Like we want to really digitize all of that, so we're not printing all of that stuff for the district every 2 weeks. So there's a number of areas that we've earmarked as target areas in all areas of the district where teachers can just go online or parents can go online, click the button and get the thing they need. So you're absolutely right about that.
Okay, like I said, I'll email you all some of the other ones. I think to reiterate everyone's point, we've heard a lot of the bad over the past few weeks. I'm looking forward to hopefully turning around and hearing from you guys all, in particular, the good and what we can kind of turn the wheel on, finding more revenue, cutting expenses that hopefully don't impact our children as much as they currently are. And moving forward.
And we would love to be able to do that with you, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mark, you brought something up. Do the teachers all receive paper pay stubs?
Yes.
They don't get emailed?
I have been trying to change that since the day I got here.
Yeah, that's.
However,
we've made progress,
I
though.
will tell you that our Envision, which handles our payroll.
Yeah.
That's our accounting software. This Friday, we are transferring from Nassau BOCES to Eastern Suffolk BOCES. So that is the first start in
Right.
having that accomplished.
Yeah, one of the issues was that Nassau BOCES wasn't able to do that for us for a particular number of reasons. So we had to transfer our entire Envision program because when we started Envision back in the day, we were one of the early districts to do it. Nassau BOCES was the only provider. So Eastern Suffolk didn't have it. So we've had it in Nassau BOCES for a long time.
Yeah.
In order, though, to get the system set up to your point where not only can they get their pay stubs emailed, but they can just go on a portal, sign in, and see all their pay stub history and also their W-2
Their
history
W-2s, yeah,
without
correct.
printing any of that stuff. We had to transfer first to Eastern Suffolk BOCES. Now that we've done that, the next step would be to go to that direction.
Wow.
But we've also worked with Amy and Diane Watson on the personnel side, just in terms of all of this paperwork that has, triplicate of, you sign off for a personal day because you're not going to be in school, like that's to go, then the mail carrier has to take it from the district, from the building to the district office, when it could all be click, click, done. So
Right.
there's a lot of efficiencies that we're trying to do in the next couple months that would get us to that point.
Right. Wow.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, thank you very much. I'll move on to board business.
Can I just make a comment?
Sure.
I just want to comment to the community and the people who are here. I want to thank you. I know this has been a difficult couple of months. I appreciated the feedback. I understand your frustration and the anger that was associated with it. And we are committed to doing anything possible to, as Mr. Mayo said, move in a positive direction that gets to happier days ahead. So thank you for your patience as we work through this. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, and any other comments from the board? Anybody? And I just want to say thank you also to the community for your support and how important it is to show up and vote for the budget. Okay, and then I'll move on to board business. I need a motion for recommended actions minutes 701 through recommended action. I go up to new business finance 810. Motion, Debbie, Christine, discussion? All those in favor? Against? Motion passes. And then I need a motion for new business personnel from 901 to 9. We could do a new business other 1003, but I need to pull one item out of the civil service schedule, item 4828. We'll do that separately. So it's from 901 to 1003, excluding 4828. Need a motion? Second, discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes. And then I need a motion for the new business personnel, the civil schedule item, which is part of 902. It's 4828. Can I have a motion? Desmond and Maureen, discussion? And all those in favor? Against? And abstained? I'll be abstaining from that. Okay, and then upcoming dates. So we have on May 14th, we have the Sunrise Drive Chorus Concert at Sunrise Drive at 7:30 p.m. May 15th, we have the Middle School Spring Concert at 7 p.m. On May 20th, we have the budget vote at the Old Junior High at between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. On May 21st, we have the Middle School Second Concert at 7 p.m. May 21st and 22nd, we have the high school one-act plays, which I highly recommend going. That's really good. That's at 7 p.m. And on May 22nd, Lincoln Avenue, we have the spring concert at the middle school at 7 p.m. On May 26th, we have Memorial Day. Schools are closed. Everybody enjoy the holiday. And on June 5th, we have the Board of Education workshop at 7:30 p.m. So
And that'll be a very special board meeting where we honor our retiree and our retirees and also our tenure recipients for for next year.
Is that our last meeting for the year?
No, we have 2 in June.
Okay.
you counting?
I'm
You're not kidding.
counting. Why would I do that?
Okay. On that note, I need a motion to go to exec session to discuss particular personnel. Desmond, Christine, thank you, everybody, and have a good night. Wait, I need to vote first. Can we have a vote? All those in favor? Against? We're going into exec session. Thank you. Sorry for the late night.